in the 1950s and early 60s. And there's a reasonable body of evidence suggesting real promise from substances like LSD. And then something happens and there's 50 years with no research. What explains that?
Well, my view is it was the Vietnam War. Mm-hmm. In the 1950s, LSD, and to a lesser extent psilocybin, it wasn't until 1958 that people worked out. Actually, Hoffman, the guy that discovered LSD, was the guy that worked out that psilocybin was like the baby brother of LSD. Yeah. They both worked on serotonin. And in fact, in 1959, Sandow made psilocybin a medicine. You could actually, in some countries, prescribe it. Massive amount of research, 1,000 clinical papers.
Wow, is it much of that?
40,000 patients studied. Why was it so massively studied? Because the US government funded over 130 grants. It was a revolution, because remember, in the 1950s, we hadn't discovered antipsychotics. We didn't have antidepressants. We had nothing apart from barbiturates and ECT. And psychedelics were seen as a complete revolution, not just in terms of treating mental disorders, but also in understanding the mind and also beginning to get sort of models of mental disorders. And everything was wonderful until the Vietnam War. People started protesting the Vietnam War. And what happened was that protest got intertwined with the LSD movement, particularly people like Timothy Leary, who began to champion the use of LSD to change society, and that was actually a threat. Yeah. But it wasn't much of a threat. But the reality is, when you're confronted with any threat, the temptation is by most Western governments to try to ban it, and they were attacking people using cannabis. They were attacking black people for using heroin as a way of distracting attention from the Vietnam War, and also finding some groups of people for the voters to hate, so that they would vote for Nixon. And then LSD. What can we do about that? Well, we just ban that as well. So it's the usual thing. If you're a hammer, everything's a nail. So LSD got banned because it was just kind of got sucked into this anti-war movement and then the Nixon war on drugs. But of course, it's been banned for 50 years, and since then, research has almost disappeared. This is the worst censorship of research in the history of the world. There's never been anything that has taken out tools like psychedelics, which could revolutionize psychiatric medicine, for 50 years. I mean, people say, well, what about the Bush, ban on fetal research? Say, well, yeah, okay, but that was just America. In fact, it actually served our purpose quite well, because the top Americans came to Britain because they could carry on that research. Whereas pretty much every country in the world signed up to the ban on psychedelics.